I'll look at a couple of financial highlights. 27. Page 27 is a summary of the operations, all of the governmental operations for the city. And there's positive results here. I'm going to focus on the totals, if that's okay, and not refer to any specific fund. But you can see that the change in the fund balance, which is the third line from the bottom, was $9.2 million in the governmental funds. That means resources in the funds, the governmental funds, increased for fiscal year 2018. So that's a positive result. And I'll have some graphs here in just a second that you can see the effect of that and how that's building resources to serve the community. So the main reason for the increase was some increases in intergovernmental revenue, which is mainly your consolidated tax. There were some additional grant revenues received in fiscal year 18, and some regional transportation commission funds that were received. So that enhanced the resources for the governmental funds. There was also a sale of capital assets, some land on Adams Boulevard that was sold, and that also increased the resources in the governmental funds. So, any questions there before I move forward? All right. Page 29, or actually page 30 is where I wanted to go next. Page 30 is a summary of the business type activities for the city. There is a utility fund, aviation fund, and cemetery fund that comprise the business type activities of the city. And the results in this area were also positive. You can see the change in net position, which is the fourth line from the bottom there. I'm looking at the total column, which is the fourth column to the right. Those were up $14.1 million from the previous year. So resources are increasing again. Operating revenues were up about $3 million. Operating expenses were down $2 million. And there were some capital grants that were received for $2.4 million in the aviation fund. So all of those things contributed to resources being built up in those funds. Are there any questions there before I continue? Okay. All right. These next slides are going to cover what we call fund balance or net position, and all that is just resources at a point in time. So if you have a fund that's made up of assets and liabilities, if you subtract your liabilities from your assets, you have fund balance or net position left over. So these are just resources at a point in time, and I just wanted to show you the trends that are going on in the city. I think they're positive, and I thought I'd share those with you. So you can see in the general fund that the fund balance, the unassigned fund balance, which is that top number there, went from $16.5 million to $20.7 million from 17 to 18. So that's approximately 8 months of reserves for the general fund. So it's a positive trend, and provides for resources to bless the community, as I said previously. Okay, and then we have your capital improvement fund. This fund is used to do various projects for the city, and you can see that it's also increasing. It went from $5.4 million to $9.3 million. So these are all what I call northeast trends. In the graphing world, a northeast trend is a positive trend. So you're going to see that all of these for the city are positive. So, all right, your utility funds, you can see, are on the rise as well. Your restricted fund balance or restricted net position is your bottom line there. And it was $2.8 million last year, and it went down to $975,000. That is just an accumulation of things that are set aside for the landfill expansion, some specific monies that are set aside. You can see the big number in the middle, the unrestricted amount, grew from $20.5 million to a little over $30 million. And I wanted to mention here that these resources in the utility fund are also comprised of some things that the council has done to set aside funds previously. So in previous meetings, the council has set aside a capital reserve, rate stabilization and landfill closure monies. And so of that $30 million that's there, 15.7 of that has already been earmarked for specific things by the council. So I wanted to point that out. Also, you can see the net investment in capital assets, which is just the equipment and the buildings and the other things that make up the fund. Those are on the rise. Those went from $26.2 million to $30 million. And so a positive trend there. Some additions were made, about $5.1 million in additions. So any questions on that? I think these are all positive trends, as I said earlier. Okay, then just quickly on the aviation fund, it's also a northeast trend. Went from $18.1 million in net position to $20 million. And your unrestricted amount, which is that bottom number, went down just a little bit, but not of concern. It's maintaining a pretty consistent trend there. Okay, then finally, I like to present just the cash balances for the city, and you can see that in the governmental activities, you have $37.1 million in cash and investments set aside, and in the business type activities, you've got $34.1 million, and those are up from the previous year. So cash trend is positive, and as I said, that shouldn't surprise you as resources are being accumulated for the city's welfare. Okay, that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions for me?
Council, any questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'll just comment that this is good news. I've listened to a lot of audits through the years, and this has to be the best, and I congratulate Diane and the team. I know it's a team effort, and I thank you and your team as well for working with us. So I think our city is in the best position than it's been since I've been on council anyway. So thank you.
Fantastic.
I would concur with that. I've been on not only for 7 years, maybe 8 years now for audits on council, and been on audit review committee, been on various boards, RTC, Health District, and Flood Control District and others, where I've actually been on the finance committees, and I don't recall ever seeing a clean opinion with 0 findings. That's pretty impressive, and usually they tell you, well, you can, no matter how well you do, you can expect some findings. And so congratulations to our staff. Lots of hard work went into that. I know that we have worked hard to address the findings we've had in the past, and some of them were minor, some of them were a little more alarming to us, and we've taken the right steps to address those. So that's always good news. And again, we appreciate our auditors' hard work as well. It's a long process. We see you stuffed in those rooms as we walk by and day after day, and so that we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we need to, what do we do, accept?
A motion to accept the audit.
All right, I'll move to accept our audit then. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries as well. And we also thank our council members that do serve on our audit review committee. All right, we have next, I believe, item number 15, correct? Which is matters pertaining to Desert Link LLC and a transmission line easement. We have Brock Armentrout to introduce us.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Brock Armentrout, your contracts and real estate manager. This is a two-part agreement. First part is to establish the easement for a transmission line that will eventually extend from Idaho all the way down to Boulder City, but this portion just extends from the Harry S. Allen substation down to the El Dorado substation. And this particular easement just covers the portion that lies within the city limits itself. So Bill 1839 establishes that easement, and then Resolution 6869 establishes the annual payment that they'll make for the privilege of having that easement within the city. The initial year's payment is $66,000 with an annual escalator at 3%, with the anniversary date being January 1st of each year. We're excited to get this one under our belt, and now we'll move forward with the balance of the other transmission lines that are on city property and should be paying the city.
Thank you. We like that when people are paying the city. Any questions or comments, Council? All right.
Mr. Mayor, my only comment is just kind of what Brock said. I like the precedents that we're setting with this contract.
Thank you. All right. I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll move for approval of resolution number 6869 and bill number 1839.
All in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Next, we are on to item number 12, Resolution 6867 for management of our 2 golf courses, Boulder Creek and our Muni course. We have Mr. Armentrout again.
And thankfully, I'm not huffing and puffing like I was several meetings ago. Apparently, that now has a new name. It's called Pulling a Brock. I hope to never repeat that.
Yeah, we can recess for 5 minutes if you want to run downstairs and come back up.
We have to check with the chief to see if he has a CPR credentials. As mentioned during the opening public comment, the city is moving forward with consolidating our golf course management contracts from 2 separate golf pro contracts into a single golf management contract. We currently have a contract with Mr. Shaper for the Boulder Creek Golf Course and Mr. Fiorentini for the Boulder City Muni Golf Course. Their contracts are expiring or have expired. As the city staff, we reviewed the various contractual situations we have at both courses and felt that it was best if we returned back to how things used to be, where we had a single golf manager manage our courses. We talked it over with the various golf professionals, and Mr. Shaper stepped up and said he would like to take that challenge on. So over the last 3 months, we have been in literally weekly negotiations with him to review the terms and conditions of the contract for him to manage both courses as well as to manage both restaurants at each course. And at such time, if appropriate, we would also amend the contract at a future year for the golf maintenance. That part we're still working on because that's a scary thing to take on. But it's hopefully either he'll take it on or he'll be responsible to manage the contract that we do enter in 2021. The contract is for $660,000 annually with a minimum escalator each year of 2% with a maximum of 4%. The escalator is based on the annual CPI number that's reported each September for the southwest area, all items. Should it be less than 2%, he's guaranteed at least a 2% increase in his contract, but should it be more than 4%, the city is protected and it's capped at 4% each year. That assists our finance department as we prepare the annual budget each year to make sure that we have sufficient funds to pay the contract. One of our primary goals as we entered into the negotiations was to come out equal or ahead as far as the revenues for the golf courses so that any pennies that we could save could be reinvested back into the courses. We feel we've been able to do this with how we modified how revenues are shared and revenues that aren't shared. For example, at Muni Course, under the current situation, the golf cart revenues are split between us and Mr. Fiorentini. Under this new contract, the city retains 100% of the golf cart rentals, much as we already do at the Boulder Creek Golf Course. And there are other examples similar to that where we're consolidating factors to ensure that the city can maximize the revenues and reinvest back into the golf courses for their enjoyment and improvement. The contractor is responsible for all merchandising. That includes purchase of all the merchandise to be sold. Under a prior contract, the city would buy some of the merchandise at one course but not at the other course. Then we would share the profits thereafter. Under this new contract, he will be responsible for buying the merchandise to be sold determining the sales price, and then we would receive 8% of the gross sales for both courses, for both the restaurant sales as well as for the merchandise sales. Greens fees, we will receive 100% of the greens fees, the golf cart rentals, 85% of the golf lessons, and so on, as much as we would like to have had under the previous agreements, and now it's consolidated into one, we can do that. Contract is for a 10-year period with 2 5-year options. The option exercise must be upon mutual consent about both parties. It's unlike some of our leases where they can exercise an option and we're bound to let them exercise the option. In this agreement, both parties have to agree to exercise the option. If not, contract's over. There's also a termination for convenience clause within the contract. So at any point in the contract, with the proper notice, either party can terminate for convenience if it turns out it's just not working, or any other reason, I suppose. Mr. Shaper is here to answer any questions, and I think a large number of people in the audience are also here to support him. I know Lou is very excited that he's still around as our high school students, as he has brought home some hardware, and we hope he continues to do so. So with that, I can answer any questions or step aside and let you talk to Mr. Shaper and then answer questions afterwards.
All right. Well, thank you. Before we introduce Mr. Shaper, we want to give a lot of thanks and gratitude to Mr. Fiorentini for his many, many, many years of service there with our Muni course. And we had Mr. Shaper in last meeting with the girls' golf team, as we did the prior year. And he comes highly recommended, obviously, as we heard from Mr. Northridge. Done great things for Boulder Creek course there in his service. And so we invite you up, Andy, if you'd like to say a few words.
Well, thank you, Mayor, Council. I have a lot of thanks that I have. First, to Tony. I don't think I would be standing up here if it wasn't for Tony and the relationship that he's built with the city over the last 25 years. I've been with you for 16, and he definitely has led the way to a good relationship, good partnership with your golf professionals in the city. So I can't thank Tony enough. I also want to make sure that I thank Brock, Julie Calloway, and Roger Hall. We've been working on this for the last couple of months now, and they've been a huge help in assisting me and helping me move forward with everything that is entailed in this. Also have some supporters here that I greatly thank that they came out tonight in support. But really, I'm excited. I'm really excited to move forward and continue to do some of the things that we've done at Boulder Creek. I do believe that we're going to be able to do some of those great things as well over at Boulder City, as it already is a great golf course, and it receives a ton of golf already. So just really look forward to having a synergy, a togetherness between the two golf courses. There's a lot of things that we can do at both now and share customers. We do a lot of tournaments at Boulder Creek, and I've already started talking to a lot of those events that maybe aren't playing Boulder City right now and hoping to move them over there as well. A lot of traveling groups that have enough room in their schedules to play both. So a lot of good things, and just excited to get started and keep moving. You know, at golf, we have two beautiful facilities, and we get to show people every day how special Boulder City is, and I just look forward to continuing that and moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Mr. Shaper?
Mr. Mayor, I just have a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to thank Andy for reaching out to the members of council so that we could meet with him individually prior to this meeting. And so I was able to pick his brain a little bit. And I'm also excited about your ideas for marketing both golf courses. And you used the word synergy between the two courses, which I think is a great word, in that having that flexibility to move groups back and forth, and to if you're seating one golf course, use the other one, and that type of thing, that you'll get the maximum play out of both courses. And I was also very impressed with the contract, and so I thank Brock and Roger and Julie for helping with that. I think it's very thorough and complete, and I don't know, I learned a lot by reading the contract, not realizing exactly how everything was before, but I like that it's uniform now between the two courses. So I think the contract was very well done, and I told Andy at the time that we met that this was contingent on him continuing to coach. So, and he agreed. So, anyway, congratulations, and I think you've done a great job of negotiating this and working this out. And so, we look forward to see what you're able to do in the next few years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to say, too, that after talking with you and some things that I've learned in the last few months, I don't think people understand the success that you've had out there in drawing some pretty top-level tournaments to Boulder City. And I would like to see us get that word out a little more, help you with the courses, but I think you named off, it was the Pac-10 or Pac-12, the Mountain West, several of the college conferences come here for their tournaments, and that creates some return business as well. Something also that I've learned recently is that Boulder Creek has been profitable for some time now. And again, that probably isn't as well known as it needs to be. So appreciate it, and again, I think that what you do in bringing people here, I'd like to see that be recognized at a higher level here in the city.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
So I'll just echo some of the same comments I've heard out there, especially from Bob Northridge. So I've seen you coach my kids, my younger kids, my older kids, close up. I appreciate that, and all the time you've put into the youth of golf. It's really the future of golf in this town, and all those 15-year-olds are going to be 25-year-olds before we know it, and they're going to be filling those golf courses. So I've really seen you be a great supporter of golf, just outside of the normal business of running a golf course. I can't think of a better guy to be running the two golf courses. I have total confidence in you, and I too met with you outside of these negotiations and got to hear some of your ideas and fully support those ideas. The part about Tony Fiorentini too is important to note. That guy has been a big part of this community and that golf course, as long as I can remember. So I hope that we, I'll give a chance to give him a big thanks as we're floating around the golf course or around town, during this last month that he's there. I'd recommend that we do something for him as a city along the way too, and we'll start thinking about some ideas for that. But he definitely deserves a lot of credit for laying the foundation of Boulder City golf, and I've seen a lot of the hard work close up that he's done over the years. So golf is in a good place in Boulder City, and moving forward, this contract I like the way it's a 10-year contract. That was well crafted. That puts you 1 year over, Tony, if you finish it out. But Brock and Roger, good job putting this together. I read through it. It's a good contract, and provides some longevity to a good pro that we're going to have for a long time. So I fully support it. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I know you didn't bring your paparazzi along to speak, probably, but if anybody else wants to come up, you're certainly welcome.
Just one more thing. I'm not alone in all the efforts put forth at Boulder Creek and some of the great things that we've done. We have hosted 7 different golf tournaments each year. The Big Sky Conference Championship's one of them. We do host the Monday qualifier for the PGA Tour. I don't do it all alone. I have a great staff, and again, we get our chance to make Boulder City shine, and without my staff, I wouldn't be up here. So I just wanted to say thank you to them.
Thank you. All right, so we will go ahead and do a motion. I'll move to approve Resolution 6867. All in favor? Any opposed? And that motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you. All right, I believe we are to item number 14 now, which is consideration of bill number 1839, amending Title I, Chapter 9, Financial Administration to revise minimum reserves and other financial items.
Diane Pelletier, Boulder City Finance Director. This item tonight is trying to simplify how we take care of our funds. And being here relatively still new, 10 months, going through the budget and then going through the utilities, trying to figure out the cash flows, and then looking at all these pockets of reserves that really weren't funded. We looked at best practices across the country and came up with some basic principles that we'd like to apply to all the funds. So that's what this ordinance does. It pretty much sets the primary reserves for all the funds of the city at 20%, and this is a best practice that will permit proper cash flow for the day-to-day operations of the funds. It also deletes some of these other reserves and creates an emergency reserve that would help the city in the event of a catastrophic event. We would have monies that we could use to hold us over until our insurance would kick in or reimburse us for our costs. It also deletes the section that related to the third intake reserve account, which is no longer applicable. So those are the basic changes to this Title I, Chapter 9 ordinance. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So these reserves that we're deleting, are they empty reserves or nominal reserves, or do some of them actually have significant amounts in them that we're rolling over into an emergency fund?
I did put money in there after I came here because we had all these reserves that were not funded. So we transferred money in there, but we're going to use those monies to fund these reserves, and it'll be much simpler to track. And again, we'll follow the best practices used around the country.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? Mr. Schuman.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. So, Diane, can you explain the difference between a reserve and an ending fund balance and an emergency fund?
Well, the emergency fund would be monies that we would have set aside, and we would always try to have that amount of money available to help us in the case of a catastrophic event. And the way we're going to do this is the proposed section calls for a minimum emergency fund balance for the general fund of $2 million, and for a combined utility fund emergency reserve of $5 million. So that would be over all the utility funds, and the airport fund of $250,000. So that's where we set those amounts, which we feel is not an extreme amount of money being tied up, but it will allow us to take care of any emergencies that come up.
Okay, so those are the emergency funds. Mm-hmm. And then when we talk about the 20%, that's
money for daily operations. Like every week we pay a lot of money to vendors, and that would allow us to have that money in our accounts to take care of that.
Okay. So our reserves will always be at that level of 20% with this?
Well, ebbs and flows, but the goal will always be to try to have that amount of money.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes we get consolidated tax at different times, and it, yes, like you said, it ebbs and flows. Mm-hmm. Okay, and does this do away with rainy day funds, or that's kind of considered in the emergency fund?
Yes.
Okay, same thing. All right, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All right. We'll open this item up to public comment, if there be any. Close public comment and come back to council for action.
Move for approval of bill number 1838.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. Next is item number 16.
The